Good evening. We're so glad you've joined us. My name is Jeremy Duda, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's forum. This forum is sponsored by the Arizona State University and the Citizens Clean Elections Commission. By way of information, ASU is a nonpartisan organization. That is, they never support or oppose any candidate or any political party. For this reason, the Clean Elections Commission has chosen ASU to conduct its candidate forums in Legislative District 18. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform measure which was passed by Arizona voters in 1998. Participation as a clean elections candidate is strictly voluntary. The system provides full public funding for qualified candidates who illustrate the support of their constituents by gathering $5 qualifying contributions from registered voters in their legislative district. They must also adhere to contribution and spending limits and may not accept money from special interest groups. And they agree to participate in these forums. This election cycle, the Citizens Clean Elections Commission has also invited traditional campaigning candidates to participate. If you hold your cards up, one of our volunteers will pick it up and deliver it to me. We screen our questions for clarity to eliminate duplications or speeches or personal attacks on candidates. If you need another card, just hold up your hand. There's an independent timer who will see that all the candidates have equal time for answers to questions and will tell them when their time is up. We ask that you remain polite to all of the candidates and give them a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with anything being said. This means no applause, outbursts, or cheers, except when we introduce the candidates. This is especially important as post-captioning services will be made available after the debate for those individuals that are hard of hearing. As such, I will refer to each candidate by their full name prior to each question and ask the candidate speak clearly into their microphone. Also, before we get started, we ask everyone to please turn off or silence any mobile phones or any other electronic devices you may have with you. Our format this evening will be opening statements, 3 minutes, 2 minutes to answer each audience question, and 3 minutes each for closing statements. The candidate this evening running for the Senate is Janie Hydrick, a Democrat and a clean elections candidate. The candidate this evening running for the House of Representatives is Denise Mitzi Epstein, a Democrat. The order in which the candidates will speak is determined alphabetically by last name and will progress from that starting point. The closing will be in reverse order. Mitzi Epstein, will you start your opening remarks, please?
Thank you. I'm Mitzi Epstein, and I'm running for the State House because I care about our community. I've been reaching out in a nonpartisan way to this community for the nearly 18 years that I've lived here. On the soccer field as a soccer coach, on the board of the Arts Council, the PTO, the PTA, I've been listening to you. As a school board member, I would meet with parents frequently, and we would solve problems together. One example was I met with some parents at Colino when their school had some construction project going on. The lunch truck had to drive across the playground, a dangerous thing, and the parents were very upset about it. So we got together and we made a solution together. We couldn't find an alternate route for the lunch truck, but we did arrange for an escort front and back of that truck so parents felt their children were safe. Advocating for children has been something I've done for more than 25 years, most recently with the statewide PTA. So I've been listening to you, and we've been solving problems together. Together has been a very important part of it. It goes back to my professional training. As a computer systems analyst, it's very important when you write a new system that it connect to all the other systems as well before you put it in place. In order to make the system strong, it has to work well with all of the others. The same thing is true on the school board, and it's true at the state legislature. I'm kind of looking forward to getting down there and working well with others. I have a bipartisan coalition of endorsers, and my approach has always been to be very inclusive, and that's what I hope to do down at the legislature. My vision is to go to the legislature and work with others to make jobs for Arizona, to focus on the innovation economy so that we have jobs with high pay and a ladder for advancement. We also need to make sure our schools have high standards so that our workforce has high standards and we have a high quality of life. Thanks.
Janie Hydrick, your opening remarks.
Thank you. Thanks to the Clean Elections Committee, and thank you to everyone who came here this evening. My husband Frank and I have been active members of our community for about 40 years. We have 3 rescue pugs, and our kids graduated from the Kyrene schools and Corona del Sol. But my 2-year-old grandson, Jaimito, who you'll probably hear, is the main reason why I want to serve in the state legislature. For him, I want to restore funding to education, restore respect for the girls and women in his life, and raise Arizona out of the bottom 3 states in economic recovery. Although my career has been educating Arizonans of all ages, I've also served as president and board member for national and international groups. So I have years of experience with collaboration and problem solving on multinational levels. I'm not a politician. I've been a career educator for 45 years, teaching in Mesa Public Schools, ASU, and now Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. I've given my students the tools they need for a future with jobs that haven't even been created yet. My classrooms have been incubators for creativity, innovation, and American ingenuity. It's high time we did that for everyone in our district and everyone in Arizona. Here are 3 values I fought for all my life. Number 1, working men and women are the backbone and the heart of our communities. Arizona is ranked at the bottom 10 states for raising girls, and then we thrust them into a workforce where there's unequal pay for equal work and a boss who can deny coverage for contraception or fire them if they use contraceptives for birth control. My opponent voted to deny preventative health care and cancer screenings for 65,000 women, and even voted to allow doctors to withhold information from women about prenatal problems. We must restore respect and value to our girls and women. Number 2, education is basic to the American dream and levels the playing field for economic opportunity. My opponent imposed the deepest cuts in the nation to our community's K-12 schools, 25%, and to our universities, 48%, forcing an 80.6% spike in tuition, the highest in the nation, with the largest class sizes. Number 3, a robust, sustainable economy is built on the power and potential of local businesses and local workers. My son-in-law has a local business, and I see every day how his business and the community support each other and depend on each other, not the wallets and best interests of out-of-state lobbyists and corporations. Your informed votes in many races can move our state forward for women, for working families, and for education, and lift us out of the bottom 3 states in economic recovery. Be informed and vote. And thank you again for this debate opportunity.
Thank you to all the candidates. We will now start with the questions. Mitzi Epstein, the first question is, please explain how education impacts the economy.
The innovation economy is based on creating new things to make things run. The focus there is because we need those jobs. The jobs in the tech sector are what will make positive economic ripple effects throughout our whole economy. A new job in one technology company helps the jobs of so many other people. And those jobs require a great education. We can't expect our students to go into STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, if they have 43 kids in an AP calculus class. We can't expect kids to know how to become great at marketing and graphic arts and the things that we need to sell great products if they've never had an art class. Education makes all the difference in the world between possibly being able to get a job and being able to make a job. We need to go forward and make sure that we're helping all of our students learn how to make a job, and that takes a great education. It also takes a great education where we've educated the whole child. STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, and everything else along with it, world languages, PE, so that we are growing up the next generation of innovators.
Janie Hydrick, please explain how education impacts the economy.
I'd love to. National research is indicating that dollar for dollar, investing in public education has a greater net value on economic growth than anything, including tax cuts. Investing in education provides a 13.3% return on investment, which is huge. 90% of the brain is developed before a child enters kindergarten. And unfortunately, in Arizona, 75% of our children do not have access to preschool. So they enter first grade and kindergarten with 90% of their brain developed and no academic preschools. 30% of our children live in poverty, and that negatively impacts their health and their education. In Arizona, we have one of the highest dropout rates. 74.7% only graduate from high school. Of those, only 51% pursue any education beyond high school, and yet all entry-level jobs require some post-high school education. That means that 60% of our students will not be ready for entry-level jobs. Cutting education funding reduces manufacturing investment, it reduces small business starts, it increases state unemployment. There are many, many negative impacts for not investing in education. And the Economic Policy Institute, in its January report, had one recommendation for state legislatures, and that was invest in education. The jobs will come. We need to do that, invest in education, so that our economy has an opportunity to come out of the bottom 3 states in recovery.
Mitzi Epstein, what could the legislature have done better regarding public education in the past 2 years?
I only get 3 minutes for this? 2 minutes. I've been advocating for 25 years for high quality and accountability in public education. Among the many things that could have been done are the 2 things that I am going to focus on. Number 1 is no more cuts to education. Our budget cuts have come in like a wrecking ball, and they have wrecked our public education system, so that we have cut all the things that our students need, like the arts, so that we can sell things, career and technical skills, so that we can make things. We need our schools to be strong so that our future can be strong. No more cuts to education, and secondly, we need to change our school labels so that we measure what matters. We need to make sure that a school can't get an A rating if all they do is reading and math. They must also be sure that they're offering AP classes for rigor, world languages so that we can connect to the whole competitive world economy, the arts, music, so that we can become great at selling things. And also, can I just say, I really like art and music, and all of us do. And we need to make sure that it's part of our education, because that's part of us, and that's what it takes to educate the whole child. So there are a number of things that they could have done differently, but going forward, what I'm going to do differently is make sure that we have no more cuts to education and that we educate the whole child.
Janie
Yes,
Hydrick.
our state legislature has cut K-12 education by 25% in the last few years. Those are the deepest cuts in the nation. We now, for the last 5 years, have had the largest class sizes in the nation. We need to provide our students and our teachers with appropriate class sizes and 21st century resources. There should be technology in every single classroom. One thing that the voters had asked for with Prop 301 was to put more money in the classrooms. The state legislature has ignored the voters' will and even cut the funding that goes to the classrooms. One piece of legislation that the state legislature did pass was move on when reading. It is the most anti-research punitive piece that the state legislature could have put into action. What it does is it takes 3rd graders and says, if you don't know reading, if you cannot pass this test on reading, you do not move on. Well, this year, we have 1,500 students who will be held back in 3rd grade. Why? Because when our state legislature cut all-day kindergarten, these children had no access to kindergarten. When they started 1st grade, they had large class sizes and fewer resources. So we're punishing the 1,500 children who did not have the reasonable resources they needed to get to that point in 3rd grade.
Mitzi Epstein. What can the Arizona legislature do to make Arizona internationally known for STEM education?
That's a great question. That's certainly what we want to do. We have been developing our bioscience and technology sectors in the Arizona economy with investments from the state, as well as private investments. It's been a private-public partnership. Those companies need great employees. They need a strong workforce. So among the things that we can do are start to invest in our own schools. We have wonderful universities that have graduated fantastic graduates who are now working there. Recently, I saw that ASU is on the short list of most graduates working at Apple in any other, and Google in any state. We have the universities. We have great school systems. In our district, we have one of the most premier school districts in the whole state. We have the ability, but we need the investment. That's why we have to stop cutting and start looking to the future and start asking our technology companies, what do you need? And then, and here's the real kicker, let's listen to them when they say that they need an educated workforce. And when they say that they actually need more than just low taxes to have a great business environment. A great business environment includes a lot more than just low taxes, because actually we've done a good job of getting our taxes low. That's all the Commerce Authority talks about. But we also need to make sure that we have a strong education system, a reliable infrastructure, and a great quality of life so that we have that great work balance in Arizona. So what can we do to make it the centerpiece of technology? We were there in the past. We can get there again. We have to work on it together, and I'm focusing on the innovation economy.
Janie Hydrick.
Thanks. In the 1980s, the United States went from #1 internationally with high school graduation and college graduation to 21st in high school graduation and 15th in college graduation. We decided as a nation that college and education was not in the common good. So we have slipped to 21st in the international standing. We have the lowest graduation rate of engineers that we have ever had in the history of our country. Why? Because in our K-12 classes, we have no science and we have no technology. What we are teaching our students is to read text about science or read text about technology. Our Arizona students scored the lowest in national tests on science because they did not have the experience with working experiments and working with manipulatives in the classroom. There's a good reason for that. Our class sizes are so large that in chemistry and physics classes with 40 and 45 students, there is no opportunity for them to experiment, to work with the tools that they need to learn what science and physics actually do. So they're reading. We will never achieve international status until we invest in our K-12 students and invest in an education that has globally competitive standards.
Mitzi Epstein. Will you promote English as a second language?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Is it from the just, will I promote English as a second language? Well, my small business was called Custom Language Training. I've spent quite a lot of time studying how people learn a language and how people learn English as a second language or their third or fourth language. As my small company, I found that, you know the joke about, well, if you speak only one language, you must be American, and if you speak many languages, you must be from somewhere else. But learning to be multilingual is an important part of being globally competitive. And therefore, will I promote English as a second language? Yes, of course, as one of many other languages, but I'm really not too sure where this question was supposed to go. We all speak English here in Arizona. It's the language of our state. It's the language in our schools. But I love every other language too, and I know that if we were going to be globally competitive, we need to be learning more languages so we can communicate with the rest of the world.
Janie Hydrick.
I agree. It's an interesting question. Absolutely. Whatever students we have here in the United States, we need to make sure that they are that they can understand what is going around them in terms of English. It's important for the workplace. It's important in their academic achievement. And there are parts of the brain for foreign language that cannot be fattened up, if you will, with anything else but language study. If we want to be part of global competition, if we want to be part of an international world that is getting smaller and smaller, then it is very important that not only our students learn English so that they can participate fully in our country, but that students who have grown up with only English learn other languages so they can be part of an international community.
Mitzi Epstein, why is it that the state refers to charter schools as public schools? If it is because taxpayer money goes to both charter and, quote, real public schools, why are the playing fields different?
Ooh, that's a fantastic question. I've been working on public education advocacy for a very long time, and in Arizona it's fascinating because we have this wonderful charter and district system, and it works for the most part. I think that we need to work on a little more transparency in our charter system and a little less regulation in our district system, but our charter and district systems are both offering wonderful options for families. What we need to do is look at both systems and decide if it's working here, can we share it over there, on whether it's charter or district? Because our purpose is that every child can get a great education, and that may be a little different from what their neighborhood school offers. That's why our charter schools have started to offer some great niche opportunities for students. On the other hand, I've talked to plenty of parents who have been very disenchanted when they went away to a charter school and came back to a district school because this, that, and the other thing was wrong. One of the problems that some of our charter schools face is financial. They try to start a new school and then find out that it's very expensive to run a school. The financial and business operations of the school can be supported with some of the organizations that we have available. The Arizona School Boards, the Charter Schools Association offers some support, but very, very little. If we want to move forward on both systems, we need to do a couple of things. Make sure our charter schools have a little more transparency, a little more support so that they can be a sound business, and make sure our district schools have a little less regulation so that they can move a little more freely, and again, try to level that playing field.
Janie Hydrick.
Charter schools are always going to be part, I think, of Arizona education because they are representative of choice. I think the issue comes in, as Mitzi said, where the accountability comes in. With choice comes responsibility, and that means accountability. Accountability for what our public schools are held accountable for: safety, curriculum, teacher quality and qualification, and student achievement. When parents want choice, they want something that is different, slightly different or very different from their neighborhood schools. Many of the districts have provided those choices within the districts and still have that level of accountability. Unfortunately, the state legislature has put some other factors into this issue of choice. For example, a charter school student can receive almost $2,000 more than a traditional public school student. So that puts the public districts in a quandary. Do we have charter schools so we can get that money in, or do we hold to the standards and the quality that we have? So the money draining the public schools of the funding that they need to have, and then putting these awkward pay situations into the public schools and charter schools is creating a situation that is unfair to Arizona's students, unfair to the teachers, unfair to the districts, and unfair to the parents.
Janie Hydrick. In Flagstaff, there's a school that teaches English, Spanish, and Navajo. Will you support this school?
Absolutely. Now, without even knowing whether it is a private school or part of a public school or a chartered public school. I support the concept completely. When children have access to multiple languages, they have access to multiple nuances, to cultures, to understandings of who they are and who the people are around them. That is something that does not happen when you don't study the languages. As I said before, there are parts of the brain that are fattened up by children learning other languages. So in concept, I would totally accept that and support that.
Mitzi Epstein.
When I was on the Kyrene School Board, I frequently presented to fellow board members and administrators my views on why we should offer more languages in our schools. It has to do with global competitiveness, and it has to do with all that wonderful brain development that happens when you learn a second language and learn a new culture. So now, Kyrene has not one, but two dual language schools where children learn everything that they learn normally, but in the first part of the day it might be in English, and the second part of the day it might be in Spanish. It's a great immersive way to learn a language and to develop our children's brains in such a way that they are more receptive to everything else that they're about to learn. So learning many languages is a great point, as I've mentioned, we've both mentioned. It's very important, and we've found many ways to do it effectively without having a great deal of cost too, so we have to do that. And I can only, admire, hats off to that school that's offering 3 different languages. We need to offer more than that. It would be terrific if we could offer all 3 of the BRIC languages, especially the Brazil, Russian, India with its, even though it's mostly English, and Chinese. Chinese is an important language in business today, and we need to offer it in more schools than we are right now.
Janie Hydrick. Child Protective Services has been disbanded and replaced with the new Department of Child Safety. What do you want the state to do to improve these services?
That's a huge question. Unfortunately, there was a culture at the state legislature for not valuing children. And because of that, we defunded full-day kindergarten. We ignored what was happening with the children in our care. And we cut funding for 105,000 kids with kids care. There was a culture of not caring for kids. It's going to take a long time for Arizona and for those children who were abused in that system to recover from that if they can. We need multiple integrated services for those children and for their families. This is a long-term recovery for a long-term problem that our legislature has caused. So it's going to take education for the families and for the children. It's going to take training for the social workers. It's going to take a lot of investment to undo what the legislature allowed to happen with these children.
Mitzi Epstein.
I've been advocating for children's issues for a very long time, at least 25 years. Most recently with the Arizona statewide PTA, which is, you may or may not know, actually an advocacy group that speaks up for children. In 2009, there were 29,000 children in Arizona families were getting child care subsidies, so that while their parents were going to work, the children could be in safe, nurturing environments for child care. We went from 29,000 to 7,500 from 2009 to 2014. That's a huge drop. And you know what? The CDC, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, has said that access to child care is a preventive factor that prevents child abuse and neglect. So you know what happened? We cut the child care subsidies, and our reports of abuse and neglect increased dramatically to the point that we have a crisis in children's protection in this state. That's not the way to be great stewards of our state. We have to look at prevention as well as punitive matters. So our new Department of Child Safety is a good step forward, but it only really addresses the punitive side of taking care of child abuse. We need to also look at the preventive side. About a year ago, I attended a forum sponsored by the Children's Action Alliance, at which speaker after speaker after speaker of professionals, social workers, psychologists, teachers, every profession you can imagine came up and said this preventive program was efficient and effective in preventing child abuse. It helped teach parents how to be great parents. And almost none of it was adopted by our legislature. We need to look at preventive and punitive measures and have a balance. And that, more than anything else, is what I want to bring to our legislature is, can we please have some balance?
Janie Hydrick, can you explain what you will do to support unions as a lawmaker?
One of the most harmful pieces, I think, that the state legislature has passed is not allowing union members to have payroll deduction with money that they have earned themselves. So we've told our union members, you cannot do with your money what you want. And I think that's unfair. There are a lot of ways that our unions will support working families. They will support the needs, the values of our state. They are, for the most part, professionals. They have been trained by their unions and by their trades to do the best, the safest job possible. We can work hand in hand with our unions to make sure that the work that is done in Arizona is local work, it's quality work, and it is safe work.
Mitzi Epstein.
I would agree with Janie that one of the damages we've done to our whole state was when we tried to damage our unions with that payroll deduction disallow. I've worked for multinational companies in my lifetime, and always my paycheck was able to have things like my insurance deducted from it. It was a convenience for me, and if the company wanted to offer it, it was helpful to me, helped the insurance company, helpful all the way around. To take this law and say, we're going to limit only for unions payroll deductions, doesn't make any sense. Why should they limit deductions for unions and not for insurance companies and healthcare and everything else that we have in our paychecks? It seemed to me that their only purpose was to try to hurt the unions. Well, my opinion is that unions are workers, and that if they want to get together to organize, that's terrific. My background is mainly with our teachers union in Kyrene, which did a wonderful job of being communicators to the people who worked in our district. They were partners with the school board. We were not adversaries. We met, we conferred, it worked. And I think that workers should always have the opportunity to work together and to organize themselves, as long as that work and those negotiations happen in a respectful way. That's something I feel strongly about. And at the same time, I've never been a member of a union. I've always been part of management. So my viewpoint is to see things how it happens from management's perspective. I think we need unions that are able to help our workers speak up.
Mitzi Epstein, what can the Arizona legislature do to redeem Arizona's national reputation for good ideas?
Would you say that again? Just because it should be repeated, please.
Sorry. What can the Arizona legislature do to redeem Arizona's national reputation for good ideas?
Yes, we do need to work on our Arizona reputation, don't we? We do need to stop being the punchline on the late-night comedy shows. And there are some ways that we can do that. You know, I've spoken to legislators who were signed on to those bills that put us in the punchline, and they just didn't see it. They just didn't see why that was going to be a problem. But it is a problem. And what the problem was that they didn't listen to enough people. Well, I've been listening and taking input from all sides for a very long time. That's why my endorsement list is bipartisan. So I think it's really important that we listen to problems before they happen, before they get on the news, before they make national headlines. We really need to listen to each other and not just one small faction, one political party, one sector of the economy. We need to listen to each other.
Janie Hydrick.
Yes, It's the voters who elect the extremists, who need to take the responsibility for electing people who are not extremists. The extremists have not just hurt Arizona's reputation, they have seriously hurt Arizonans, Arizona's working families, our children, and our women. For example, this last spring with 1062, there was a letter to Governor Brewer from 80 business groups in Arizona that said, not only will this give us a reputation nationally for being discriminatory and unwelcome, but it is going to hurt Arizona business for decades to come. All three of our LD18 legislators did vote for 1062. It was not until we almost lost the Super Bowl that they decided to take it back. And Governor Brewer thankfully repealed it. There are other policies, including education and healthcare, where the extremists have hurt Arizona by putting their policies in place so that we are at the bottom. We are one of the bottom 3 states in economic recovery. That comes from extreme policies and extreme politicians who need to be replaced by more moderate, common sense, solution-finding legislators.
Janie Hydrick, what are some steps the Arizona legislature can take to encourage startups in Arizona?
Oh, well, the Arizona Commerce Authority does have some strategies for that. And in fact, they just provided, I think, 18 grants statewide for entrepreneurs statewide to start up their business or to reinforce the business that they're starting. What we need to do is take the focus away from out-of-state corporations and from large corporations and invest in small businesses in Arizona. They hire or employ 97% of our Arizonans. So that's where the action is in terms of employment and workforce. When we invest in the local businesses, those local businesses, by paying those employees, will turn that money back into the Arizona economy by buying local property, machinery, or items that they need to run their business, and with their personnel list. The people take their paychecks and they invest them again in the local economy. So we need to turn around what we're doing and give priority to Arizona's small businesses and let them grow and let the economy grow.
Mitzi Epstein.
Specifically, I think we need to grow startups in the technology sector. We have made some great gains in bioscience and technology in Arizona because of some of the investments that Janie described. I've been meeting with the Arizona Technology Council, which has been spearheading some of these programs to provide capital for startups to grow from 5 employees to 50 to 500. I've also been meeting with the innovation entrepreneurs who gather in places like Gangplank, Tech Shop, Heatsink Labs in Mesa, and in garages and workshops all across the valley. Specifically, the other night, I was at the door of a maker who has been working on a solar energy battery that has great promise, and also a little clip for your glasses that'll hold them to your shirt. It was very handy, and I really wanted one when he showed it to me right now. Our innovation economy is what we need to focus on, and I've already begun the process of meeting with the people we need to get together. Because our Commerce Authority has some great ideas and has really been building this bioscience and technology sector for the last 10 years or so. However, I think that we could do a little better job of connecting them to the people who are running the startups, who are making the brand new companies, and who are running the very small businesses or creating these brand new products. We need to connect them with these innovators to figure out what do the innovators need to help them monetize that product. We also need to have a little more investment in our universities because our universities are fodder for all of those wonderful inventions. So it's a several-point process of bringing together the Technology Council, the Commerce Authority, with our innovation startup entrepreneurs and helping them figure out what does the one need from the other.
Janie Hydrick, where do you stand on the proposed Loop 202 freeway extension, which has the potential to be built through Ahwatukee?
That's an excellent question. The Loop 202 has, the proposal has been in process since 2002. And for people who are really interested in this, the environmental impact study has been posted on the ADOT website, and you need to go there. It was the latest survey was posted on September 26th, and it is open for response and comment. So if you are concerned about that, please go and make your comments. As a state legislator for Ahwatukee residents, I would work hard to make sure that that Loop 202 is not on the Pecos Road. There will be other alternatives presented, including the no-build alternative. I think we will end up with a highway, but we don't want it on the Pecos Road alignment. We do not want it to impact negatively the residents of Ahwatukee, the schools, and the community there. So we will work really hard not to have that alignment.
Mitzi Epstein.
My house is not in Ahwatukee, but I live in Ahwatukee. I've coached soccer teams on soccer fields from Sierra to Millennial. I've spent countless hours on the fields at Akimel, in Centennial. I've been in their schools. I've been out on the parks playing tennis, playing soccer, playing everything else. These outdoor places are wonderful, and we want to make sure that they remain healthy places. The highway has a number of health problems, a number of environmental impact problems. I do hope you'll go to that ADOT site and give your ideas about the environmental impact, because input and community engagement will make it better. As a legislator, I will always speak up for the people of Ahwatukee because you're friends and family and neighbors to me. And as I said, I live there. We want to make sure that Ahwatukee remains a healthy place to live.
Mitzi Epstein, what will you be doing to improve health services to veterans after the recent revelations?
I got to be perfectly honest with you. I'll be consulting with people like Mr. Corey Harris and others to learn more about it, because I do not know a great deal about the veterans situation except for what everybody else has read in the newspaper. I am always open and glad to listen to find out what we can do as a state if there's something that the state needs to do beyond what the federal government is doing. Since it's the veterans' affairs, I understand that is mostly their purview, but I'm always wanting to listen to the lives of veterans and finding ways to make them better. For instance, like Tempe is helping homeless veterans to find a home and move on and become as productive as they always can be.
Janie Hydrick.
It's been a very disturbing realization that our veterans are not being cared for in the way that they should be. I would join with the expert veterans that we have in our district and the resources that we have statewide to find out exactly what it is that we need to do to work with the Veterans Administration so that our veterans have immediate health care, quality health care, and comprehensive health care. That is their right, they have earned it, and we owe it to them as a state and as a country.
Janie Hydrick, do you have a plan to assist homeless veterans?
I love the plan that the Phoenix area came up with Greg Stanton, and I would like to see that implemented in other cities as well.
Mitzi Epstein.
I can only reiterate that I've seen our cities have picked up the ball for veterans, and I would like to learn more about it. I have wonderful respect for our veterans, and just recently I've listened to another radio program explaining some of the huge challenges that these heroes face, and I'm very receptive to learning more about it. from those who are making strides. And I think that Phoenix and Tempe are making strides in that area.
Okay. Mitzi Epstein. Soon marriage equality will come to Arizona, but job discrimination for the LGBT community will still be the law of the land. What will you do to bring equality to opportunity?
Equality to opportunity simply makes sense for all of us. It will make our economy stronger, our quality of life better, and our social situations more fair. Whatever we can do should be done to help make sure that everybody has a fair chance in their employment. Just as you shouldn't be able to hire or fire somebody based on any other factor, their LGBTQ status should not make any difference either.
Janie Hydrick.
Yes, Arizona needs to be inclusive and welcoming of all of our people, and that includes many groups that have been discriminated against in the past and sadly, currently. It includes women, it includes the LGBT community, it includes blacks, it includes Latinos, it includes Asians, it includes anyone who steps in Arizona. Everyone, every person has a right to the basic human and civil rights that we all ascribe to, and to have Arizona deny any rights to anyone makes us a state that will not have stature with other states, either in economy, health, education, or reputation. We need to be supportive of every person.
Janie Hydrick. Do you believe it's important to stop the growth of Arizona's private prison industry?
Yes, absolutely. The investment that our state makes in privatized prisons is wrong. We have issues of safety. We have issues of cost containment, efficiency, recidivism, all of the negative impacts of having a privatized prison are at work here in Arizona. There was a report that broke a few days ago about prisoners from Vermont who had been sprayed and left in solitary confinement, I believe, for over 30 days. So we are liable for a lot of the mistreatment and abuse of prisoners that we have here in Arizona. Also, there's a culture for criminal justice where if we're already paying for the beds, why not sentence people to serve in those privatized prisons? I believe personally that there's a conflict of interest when state legislators who are making rules about privatized prisons and serving on committees to perpetuate them also have stock in those privatized prisons. We need to have a committee of legislators without conflict of interest to do the audit and do the study and report to the people of Arizona what we really need to do to clean up that economic and person failure.
Mitzi Epstein.
We need to make sure that our system is not one in which people get rich off of incarcerating parents. We need to make sure that our system is set up so that the emphasis is public safety, not private profits. I won't say that private prisons are bad always, but I will say that we need to turn the audits back on, because it was unbelievable to me when I learned that the legislature had simply turned off the audits on our private prisons. When we take away accountability, we open the door to corruption. And that's what we potentially could have going on. We just don't know. So we have to have a lot more accountability with our prisons. With our private prisons. We also have to make sure that the right incentive is in place. Right now, the incentive is profit. So essentially, the more prisoners, the more people commit crimes, the more profit our prisons make, and they have no reason to try to rehabilitate. They have no reason to reduce recidivism in the private prison system. So we really need to flip around the way the system works to make sure that our incentives are correct, that we go for high efficiencies, which was the reason they privatized them. Some legislators thought some efficiencies could be found by bringing in some private companies. If they can be found, let's see them. Let's let the audits show that those are really there. So we want to make sure our prison system in total, the private part, the public part, all of it has to be focused on public safety.
Mitzi Epstein, is there a legislator from the other side of the aisle that you would like to work with at the legislature? And remember, be nice.
I have worked with many, I'm a Democrat, and I have worked with many Republican legislators. I worked on a bill for school busing with Karen Fann. I've worked with all three of our legislators, John McComish, Bob Robson, and Jeff Dial, to some extent, on a number of different bills, and certainly had many, many conversations with them about the work that they were doing. As an advocate for public education, I've had many conversations with various legislators over time, and I look forward to always reaching across the aisle. That's why, once again, my endorsements are from both sides of the aisle. I have endorsements from the Democrats and Republicans on the city councils and on school boards who have all recognized that my goal in life is to listen to the full gamut of perspectives.
Janie Hydrick.
Yes, I think one of the people that I admire most in the state legislature is a Republican, Bob Worsley from Mesa. In fact, I sponsored a fundraiser for him earlier this spring. He has Arizonans and everyone in his best interest when he votes for health care, when he supports education, and now he is trying to bring the fine arts from New York to Mesa with a fine arts center that will be absolutely wonderful, and it'll be supported by having the fine arts in the school. He is easy to talk to, he is easy to work with, and he represents the values and needs not only of his constituency, but very much so the ones of LD18. So it'll be a delight to work with him in the state Senate.
Janie Hydrick, what do you feel is the state's role in protecting animals, especially lost animals, and supporting animal shelter operations?
Gosh, thank you for that question. We need so much help in terms of dealing with the animals that we have. I have a friend in the audience who is working with the Maricopa County supervisors to work with the shelters for cats and dogs and domestic animals. Unfortunately, our state legislature, with our 3 LD18 legislators, voted to exempt farmers and ranchers from cruelty to dogs. It is now okay for ranchers and farmers to torture, maim, kill, withhold medical treatment for their ranch dogs. I don't understand that. The state legislature also minimized the penalties to ranchers and farmers for abuse of livestock and have decreased the safety net for whistleblowers. So it is an issue for livestock and ranch dogs in the state legislature that we need to question and hopefully repeal. With our domestic animals, we need the awareness of what is going on. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the abuse to animals in the domestic domain occurs because of the economic downturn. We usually see more animals put up for adoption when the economy is down. So yes, there is a lot that the state legislature can do to protect the animals that we love domestically and the animals that we depend on in terms of livestock.
Mitzi Epstein.
A while back, I read a statistic that was along the lines of about 75% of families have a cat or a dog, kind of a pet. Having knocked on the hundreds and thousands of doors that I've knocked on over the years, I'm pretty sure it's closer to 95%. We love our pets. We love animals in this state and in this country. We know that they should be treated well, and our laws should reflect that. To some extent, some of our laws are simply outdated, and some of them need an update. So yes, a legislator can do a lot to help protect animals in Arizona.
Mitzi Epstein. Do you support in-state college tuition for undocumented students who graduate from Arizona schools?
Do I support what kind of tuition?
In-state tuition,
In-state tuition for,
undocumented students.
right. They're our students. Our dreamers, the DreamAct kids are our students. They are kids. They are the kids who were on my soccer teams, I suppose. I don't know. I didn't ask. But kids who grow up here, who are American in every way, who have studied here, who are working hard at their studies, who are successful, why would we not want to bring them and let them be part of our whole Arizona? Let them help be productive Arizona. Let's have them be part of making Arizona wonderful. Whether or not they can get in-state tuition is something we would have to debate, and I think that I would frequently fall on the side of all the reasons why we need to invest in these kids, because they are ours and they can help make our economy more productive.
Janie Hydrick.
I think there's a moral imperative for allowing the Dreamers to have in-state tuition. They have been part of our community. They've been productive members of our community. They want to be more productive in our community. But there's also an economic imperative. There are 90,000 Dreamers in Arizona, and they could impact our economy by $18 billion in the next 15 years. They can easily generate tax revenue for Arizona of $518 million per year till then. They want to be productive members of our community. They want to have the highest level of education they can have so they can contribute the most to our community, not only in knowledge and skills and career choice, but also in terms of tax revenue and not using social safety nets. So yes, absolutely, we need to support our children, whether they are Dreamers or not.
Janie Hydrick. How do we ensure that undocumented kids who are in Arizona receive an education?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
How do we ensure that undocumented kids who are in Arizona receive an education?
My understanding is that they do receive an education. If you're talking about K-12, that the public schools do provide an education for them. And that should continue.
Mitzi Epstein.
The federal law requires that we simply educate every child that comes in the door, and that's what we should continue doing, following the federal law.
Mitzi Epstein. Roughly $316 million has been mandated by the courts to fund K-12 education, and much of the discussion is about increasing the state's investment. But how is this possible, and do you believe we need to take a closer look at how we are funding education and how we get more money into the classrooms?
We definitely need to take a look at our funding system, and I have actually taught classes and workshops for parents and small businesses about how the funding system works in Arizona. It's not so much right now about whether or not the funding system works as it is that there's just not enough money in it. As I said, I am going to stand up for no more cuts to our schools because the cuts have come in like a wrecking ball. From the time that my kids were in school to now, which is only about 10 years, it's a 25% cut. So imagine 4 teachers in a 5th grade level at a school down to only 3 teachers. That's a crowded classroom. That's a lot less being learned and a lot less being taught. So we need to do something about the actual funding. Immediately, the rainy day fund has enough money to cover that, plus the structural problem that the legislators have in the gap, as a gap in the budget. So our rainy day fund will take care of our immediate need. After that, we need legislators who will go there and say, when we're negotiating the budget, education is off the table. Because it's about the only thing that seems to have been on the table for year after year after year after year. And so it's time to take education off the table for what gets cut, and it's time to make sure that we start investing in our own future by investing in our kids.
Janie Hydrick.
There are 3 aspects of this that I want to address. First of all, as Mitzi said, the funding system needs to be redone. It is not appropriate for the 21st century. That's one issue. The second issue is that the legislature totally disregarded the voters of Arizona who in 2000 voted for Prop 301, which would have taken care of the inflation for education funding. The third is that the legislature is ignoring the data that indicates that when you spend money on education, it is not spending, it is an investment. And that the state of Arizona would get a 13.3% return on investment for every dollar spent on education. We cannot betray generations of Arizonans by not providing a quality education. And we need to respect the will of the voters who wanted the inflationary piece in Prop 301.
Janie Hydrick, how will you secure Arizona's borders?
That is primarily a federal issue, and I think we need to demand that the federal government step up where it has made promises of securing the border. We have a lot of issues that need to be addressed by a comprehensive immigration reform. There are issues in Arizona that are not peculiar to Arizona. They are nationwide. And so by having Congress address comprehensive immigration reform, we can help address the issues of dreamers, of people who've been working here for a long time, and families of dreamers.
Mitzi Epstein.
We need to crack down on the cartels and the trafficking that is going on across the borders, without a doubt, and that's something that our state must focus on. But again, like Janie, I do not believe and do not want to spend Arizona's limited budget on something that the whole country should pay for. So that's my position on the border in terms of our money. And I've been hearing from people at the door time after time, they don't want to spend Arizona's money on something that the rest of the country should be paying for either. I've also heard people say that they are concerned about their own safety. And I recognize that the real answer there is to stop taking money away from our cities and towns. We've done way too many sweeps to take money away from cities and towns in order to balance the statewide budget, and that has left our cities and towns unable to pay for roads, police, fire, all of the things that help keep our neighborhoods safe. So if we want safe neighborhoods, a very direct way that the state legislature can help to keep us all safe is to let the cities and towns keep their own money and stop the sweeps.
Mitzi Epstein, what can the state legislature do to improve the shortages and shortcomings in our foster care system?
From 2009 to 2014, children in foster care increased by 45%. It is a serious problem. And foster care is not the perfect solution for our children. We want our children to stay with their own parents in their own families. So once again, one of the best things we can do is put those prevention systems in place. We need programs that will help parents learn how to be great parents so that their children can stay with the family and not have to go to foster care.
Janie Hydrick.
Absolutely. What we need to do is have a state legislature that really values children and families. The families have been neglected in the past, so they need education on child rearing. They need support in how to be good parents. They need support with health care, which they have not had. They need support with child care, which they have not had. And we can expand the families to include grandparents. There are a lot of grandparents who take the responsibility of caring for their grandchildren in terms of health and education, providing a home. But there are no subsidies to help them do that. So we need to look at each child's situation and what would be the best situation for that child and how we can help the family around that child. It is something that has not been done with our state legislature. And hopefully the new child services, since it is comprehensive, it includes a lot of the social work and social nets, safety nets, that it will have an opportunity to do that.
Janie Hydrick, do you feel we are providing for the adequate welfare of our senior citizens, and what, if anything, should be done?
I'm not sure what the data is on this. I do know in a national situation that Social Security and Medicare are being threatened. When they are being threatened, then our senior citizens are being threatened. We have many community organizations and agencies who have taken it upon themselves to provide services for the elderly with Meals on Wheels and getting the elderly to medical appointments. And it's too bad that we did not have the Medicaid expansion here in Arizona, and we're not able to catch some of our senior citizens with that. Hopefully, that'll be a turnaround. We do need to make sure that the elderly are aware of the services that are available to them. That, again, is education and an investment in that.
Mitzi Epstein.
We are a society that cares about our elderly. We don't just set grandma out on the porch on a rocking chair and let her freeze out there. I'm from Illinois, so on the porch she would freeze. Out here she'd get sunburned. We take care of our elderly, and that's what we should be doing. As a legislator, one specific thing I will be working on is helping to make sure bioscience grows in Arizona, because when the research is here, it helps us first. So our seniors need medical care, and a lot of that medical care can come from the research that we're doing here. So one definite point that I'm going to be working on is helping bioscience to grow in Arizona so that the medical research is here, and we don't have to wait for it to come from somewhere else. Aside from that, Janie touched on most of the really important points, and certainly communicating, doing the outreach that we need to our seniors to make sure that they know of the programs that are available is another piece that we can improve on.
Good. Last question. Mitzi Epstein. We learned this week that that the state will likely be facing a $500 million deficit this fiscal year and a $1 billion deficit the next fiscal year. What would you do to balance Arizona's budget?
As I said, number one, we're not going to cut education. We're not going to balance the budget on the backs of children anymore. However, it is a huge challenge, and we do have to figure out what to do about it. I think that there are possibilities for cutting waste in government. We can always cut a little more waste. I have a bill that will cut a little bit of waste between the Department of Health and the Department of Education. It just takes two areas where there's overlap and untangles the red tape. So same number of services, cuts the cost. That's the kind of thing that I learned professionally as a systems analyst, is to look at a system and figure out how can we cut waste, improve productivity on it. So we can do a little bit of that always. And we'll have to work together, and we'll have to go in with the attitude of how can we grow Arizona's economy, make sure we have a strong education system to make sure that happens, and work together to make sure that our budget is balanced, because it has to be balanced by our Constitution requires it. Anybody who says, I'm going to balance the budget, the Constitution requires it. It's going to happen. But what's more important is, are you going to balance the budget on the most vulnerable in our population, or are you going to balance the budget in a way that's fair? I'm going to look at fairness and make sure that every worker, every child, every family, every single adult is taken care of, and make sure that everybody gets the benefits that come with Arizona.
Janie Hydrick.
It's true. We will have a revenue deficit of $2 billion by 2015, and that does not even include the $2 billion deficit that we will have by 2019 because of the Corporate Welfare Act. Of course, we are required by our Constitution to have a balanced budget, but we cannot, as they did in the last few years, balance the budget by sweeping funds like the Heritage Fund or the Highway User Revenue Fund. We need to be honest and accountable for balancing the budget in a way that represents and serves the values and needs of Arizonans, not of out-of-state corporations and lobbyists. It's going to take a reprioritizing of what the legislature has been spending money on and what it needs to invest in. And it needs to invest in the people of Arizona. That includes healthcare, that includes education. And I will go back to the Economic Policy Institute with its single recommendation for state legislatures: invest in education, the jobs will come. So we need to make sure that we are taking care of the children and the people of Arizona first, and we need to balance it honestly and with transparency, not by sweeping funds and not by balancing the budget on the backs of the working families of Arizona.
Yeah. Well, we've run out of time for questions, and we will now move on to the closing statements. The first closing statement will be given by Janie Hydrick.
Our LD18 community deserves representation that mirrors our values. Our community loves our girls and women, and we want them to have access to health, safety, and economic opportunities. We trust our women to make their own healthcare decisions with their family, their doctor, and their faith without interference by government. We want them to have equal pay for equal work. We don't want legislation that makes women second-class citizens. That's voting against our values, and our community deserves better. Our community values education, and we love our Kyrene schools and high schools. Our community schools have been cut by 25% and the university by 48%, the deepest cuts in the nation, giving us the largest class sizes in the nation. Our schools lose millions in revenue each year from expanded vouchers and tuition tax credits to private schools. Additionally, my opponent voted against our students being held to globally competitive standards. That's voting against our values, and our community deserves better. Our community values a democratic government, so increased campaign limits disenfranchise those of us who don't have the money to compete with lobbyists and out-of-state corporations. Then my opponent's Independent Suppression Act this spring limited political participation by independents, a third of our district's voters. That's voting against our values, and our community deserves better. Our community values quality health care. It was politically expedient for my opponent to support Medicaid expansion, yet because he voted to eliminate kids care when there were 105,000 kids on the waiting list, Arizona is the only state with no kids care program, so now 14,000 kids will be ineligible for affordable health care. That's voting against our values, and our community deserves better. Our community values a robust economy, yet my opponent's economic policies placed Arizona with the bottom 3 states in economic recovery. He voted for the Corporate Welfare Act that will cause a $2 billion revenue deficit by fiscal year 2019, and voted for the discriminatory SB 1062, which, according to a letter to Governor Brewer from 80 business groups, in addition to creating a reputation that Arizona is judgmental and unwelcoming, will haunt our business community for decades to come. That's voting against our values, and our community deserves better. Our LD18 community deserves representation that mirrors our values, not a politician who is beholden to out-of-state corporations and lobbyists. Please be informed, and please vote.
Mitzi Epstein.
I care about our community. That's why I'm here tonight. I care very much about what each and every one of you think, and those of you who are listening or maybe watching the video, I hope you'll go to the website, mitzi2014.com. If you have any questions or feedback, leave the questions, comments, or feedback. Outreach is very important to me. I've always thought that elections should be based on the issues and that people should come together and discuss them, and I'm frankly disappointed to see that nobody else is here to discuss the issues with us. I don't know what it says about their attitudes towards our community to not come and discuss issues publicly. I care about our community, and I've been doing outreach for the nearly 18 years that I've lived here. I've based that on the fact that as a computer systems analyst, you have to reach out to all the other systems to make your system work with everybody else. I've worked with multinational corporations, and I know that being able to be competitive in the whole globe is the way that we make the Arizona economy grow. As a school board member, I continued the outreach and worked on policies that would help student achievement and help families. And everybody else to become more productive, to help become part of our community. Bringing the community in was one of the major purposes of running for the school board, and by the time I finished, I had many people thank me for my time opening the doors. Opening the doors and providing transparency is very important for any kind of government. It's the basis of our democracy, making sure that everybody is heard and that everybody has a voice. I'm going to go to the State House and bring you with me by staying in contact with you and everybody else who wants to meet with me at any time to understand your lives, because I can only represent you well if I understand your lives. That's what outreach is all about. So I care about our community. That's why I'm running for the State House. And I'm going to work on the innovation economy because that's how we're going to grow in Arizona and make our recovery better. I'm going to focus on the innovation economy because we need that to help our schools, and our schools are needed to help our economy. These are the two things that I'm mainly going to focus on, and I'm going to focus on them with you by reaching out to you continuously.
We thank all of you who took the time to come and inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to find out more about clean elections and the candidates running for office by visiting www.azcleanelections.gov. A video of this forum, as well as other clean elections forums, will be posted on that site within 72 hours of a scheduled forum. Also, we encourage you to complete the survey you received when you arrived and return it to the registration table. If you did not receive a survey, they are available at the registration table. Thank you all for coming tonight. Good night.